Welcome, welcome. I want to say how excited I am to be talking about this topic today because it's something that is important and relevant to all firms, no matter whether you're solo or you tend to be larger. So what we're going to be focusing on is tech stack strategies to scale your accounting firm, and it's going to be with Kelly Gonsalves that we're going to have a topic today. I'm Lauren Fogelman with Business Success Solution, and some of the points we're going to be covering is strategic growth for small accounting firms, how specialization fuels your firm's growth, and digital solutions to expand firm capacity and maintain efficiency, especially if you don't want to dominate and be a very, very large firm. So I suggest you have something ready, whether it's pen and paper, whether it's a sheet open to take some notes, because Kelly is very generous and she will be sharing a lot. And then we'll let you know how to connect with her as we wrap up. A little bit about Kelly. Kelly Gonsalves is an accounting influencer based in New York City. She founded her firm Totally Booked in 2015 in order to assist clients in becoming more profitable through efficient accounting processes and technology implementations. Kelly is also a QuickBooks Advanced Certified Pro Advisor, an alumni of the Intuit Trainer Writer Network, a HubDoc Top 50 Cloud Accountant, and a two-time Insightful Accountant Top 10 Pro Advisor. As you can see, she has been doing this for quite a while and has recognition. And so what I have found about Kelly is she is so passionate about sharing knowledge. She speaks at industry conferences, hosts countless webinars, and she is looking to really raise the bar for accountants and bookkeepers so that they can excel. If you want to find out more about Kelly Gonsalves and Totally Booked, you can go to totallybooked.nyc. So Kelly, let's go ahead and get into the conversation. Welcome to our LinkedIn Live today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. This is my first LinkedIn Live. So I'm like, all right, I'm out there in the world. Hi, people. I don't know who's there, but I'm excited. Yeah.
And before we go into anything about the topic, I just wanted to know what happened. What was your journey like that got you started in the accounting profession? Did something inspire you?
So I was, and I tell the story when I speak, I try to start at the beginning, but I'll make it a little shorter. But basically I was working a really crappy job and I did not get along with my boss, and it was mutual and it was terrible. And so he fired me because I was like really stubborn, like I'm not going to leave until I find another job. I'll figure it out. And so he fired me and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Right. So I was like, great. I was like, do you need anything from me? Like, are we good? And he's like, no, like, I guess he thought I was going to be upset. And I was just like, this is the best thing that has ever happened to me. So I had been really complainy about, not wanting to work there and how horrible it was. And so I called my aunt and she was like, oh, great. She said, I'm teaching a QuickBooks class next week. Be there. I was like, oh, okay. She's like, I think that this is something that would be a good fit for you. And, I'd like you to at least give it a try and see how you feel. Now, for background, she's been a pro advisor forever. She's been in the industry for about, I think, at least 40 years. And she taught QuickBooks desktop classes at Hofstra as part of their business development, I guess, program, like business strategy. Mm-hmm. And so I went and I took the class and kind of, I guess the rest is history, so to speak. But I learned desktop and then I moved to online, and I just kind of decided that I liked the flexibility of being online and being in that space and being virtual. So I embraced that and kind of grew a remote practice from there. I went to, actually went to my first conference, maybe a year and a half in, and met other people that were doing, what I do, or similar in some way. And I was really inspired by the way people were doing things, but then also just the industry is so, sharing and helpful and mm-hmm. just, kind of bring your questions. Let's figure it out. Let's collaborate. Really nice people. And I met people there that I'm still friends with. And it was kind of like I know it sounds dramatic, but I would say like a life-changing kind of thing. And so it helped me, grow and change my practice. And I would say that was probably, I guess, inspirational / also Like I didn't know what I was going to do kind of thing. You know, I was happy to not be at the crappy job anymore. But I was just like, oh, I'll just go get another job. And my aunt was like, yeah, I think we can do better than that. Like, let's see if we can, you know, actually move you towards doing your own thing, which I didn't think was possible. I grew up thinking that, you know, companies are corporations or large companies. You know, you have to have employees and you have to be big and grow and do all that. I didn't really know much about small businesses. My mom worked for the city of New York, and so in my house it was benefits and pension and retirement
Mhm.
plan and like all that kind of stuff. And so just that world was just not something that I was even considering or knew much about, you know?
So it sounds like your aunt had a positive influence on you. And I so agree, Kelly, that the accounting profession, the people that are in it, they're like on a mission and they are very, very generous, helping to lift each other up.
Yeah, I love it.
And one of the things that I've seen for you is that you don't just actually do the work with your clients, you're out there elevating the profession also. You're training, you're speaking. And what inspired you to actually start adding public speaking in? Because that's something that most people actually avoid to any
So,
degree.
so I guess one of two ways, right? So I started going to BNI, Business Networking
Mhm.
International. And I was like, oh, I'm gonna join this group and like, you know, network and maybe like do a little bit of, and I had my first presentation where you have to do like a 10-minute like PowerPoint to explain what you
Mhm.
do, what the services are, and etc. And I basically like got up, I had some slides, and I was just like, hi, I'm Kelly. I do QuickBooks and I do some bookkeeping and I was like this, like literally shaking. I think I finished in like 5 minutes and I was just like, okay, and I'll send everyone the slides and thank you so much. And okay, thanks. And like I was terrified. But what I learned from book like being in BNI, I got up every week, I spoke every week, I got stronger, I got better about my messaging. And so I got more comfortable in front of a room. And I was actually at a conference. I think it might have been Scaling New Heights, and Allison Ball, who ran the TWN, the
Mhm.
Intuit Trainer Writer Network, said, you know, I'd really like for you to apply. And I was like, okay, thanks. And just kind of like, all right, and like walked away. And it didn't register in my mind because most of my, I guess, interaction with anyone in the industry till that point was mostly like from a keyboard, right? So I had done mostly Twitter, Facebook groups. And so anytime I was, you know, speaking, it was kind of cheating, right? Because I was typing, I wasn't really speaking
Mhm.
much. And so she said, you know, we like your messaging and what you're saying and your involvement, and we'd like you to apply. And I was just like, okay, cool. And then I went home and I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, she told me, like, she wants me to apply to be in the TWN. I was like, that's insane. Like, that's crazy. Right. So I went back to her the next day. I was like, oh my God, I totally did not even fully comprehend what you were saying at that moment. And I'm so grateful. Like, thank you so much. I would
Mhm.
absolutely love to apply. And so to me, I thought those people were just like picked, like the people that do the trainings for Intuit or content or anything. So I thought it was just like, oh, we like you and we're going to work with you kind of thing. I didn't know it was a whole process. So when you apply, you fill out the application, they set up like a sample presentation kind of thing. And by then I had gotten better about speaking in front of people, thankfully. And it was just a committee of a couple of people, and you go in and you do a presentation, and you know, then you find out if you made it or not in the next like month or so. But I think that was the push because I guess at that point it was kind of someone on the outside recognized that I was trying to put my message out there
Mhm.
and, you know, be a positive influence in the industry and really try and help, you know, other accountants and bookkeepers. And so that was the push that made me kind of take this a little bit more seriously. And so I applied for the CWN, but then I also started working with different like apps and doing webinars and stuff like that. And I guess it was kind of a natural progression into conferences and actually speaking
Mhm.
in person. So I guess that was the the switch that flipped for me. But yeah, I did not go into this with like, I'm gonna get on a stage. It was just like, oh, that would be cool. And someone else was like, I think that would be cool. I think you should try that. And so I did.
I love it because I didn't go into the speaking part willingly, I went kind of kicking and screaming a little bit. Because
Yeah, well,
I had such a fear of public speaking in the beginning. I had to go to Toastmasters to get over it, and then
okay.
BNI like you and Chamber of Commerce and
Right.
all that to force myself to be in front of people, especially being more of an introvert. It just didn't come naturally. But I love educating, and that's what I'm hearing from you also is
Yeah.
that you have something within you, and you just have to get it out.
Yeah, I want to share it. So I often say I'm an introvert, or I'm, what is it, introverted,
I'm an
extroverted, introvert,
ambivert,
whatever it
so
is.
you
Right.
can turn it on when you
So,
need to, and then you turn it back off
right.
later on.
But like I am better now, I think, about getting, and people laugh because I think I hide it well, but I'm better about getting up in front of a room than I am
Hmm.
about like small talk, right? So like if I'm in a smaller
Yep.
setting, I have to like, hey, how are you? What do you do? How's the weather? How are the kids? Like, I don't know. Like it's just like those random conversations.
Hmm.
But I force myself to have them at this point because I'm like, you never know. If I don't go down this path, if I don't try, if I don't push myself, if I don't, take the next step, it's more that what are the opportunities I could be missing out on? So I try to
Hmm.
look at it that way. I think a lot of us in this industry are more introverted, which makes sense. But I kind of made a decision. I was like, if I if I avoid this, what am I possibly passing up? And I think that was like the
Yep.
big decision maker.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
And what I've seen is introverts actually make great public speakers. So, but moving forward, over time, you developed a specialty, which is e-commerce accounting. It's something that not everybody wants to do because it can be very, very detailed. And also, is there something that once again kind of opened up that door of opportunity where you felt that e-commerce was the particular niche that you wanted to move into?
So in the beginning, I was like, I'm going to take everyone. I'm a generalist. I'm going to work with
Hmm.
everybody. It's going to be great, right? Um, and then I started to listen to different podcasts and webinars, and everyone's like, you have to niche, you have to niche, you have to niche. Um, I was still kind of generalizing, so to speak. And I had a client that was on, she built her business primarily on Etsy. And then she wanted to move to WooCommerce and kind of explore some different channels. And I was like, okay, we can kind of like wade into this slowly. But that turned into referrals and other people in the same industry. And then it was Shopify, and then it was Amazon, and it kind of just grew. And I was like, okay, I felt like I couldn't keep turning away leads that might make sense for me. What I also found is working with people in those industries, it fit really well with how I work, right? So I'm heavy on technology and using apps and kind of connecting all the things, and like let's see what we can map together, and automation, and like how much can we get rid of manual process. And that industry is kind of a fit because they're kind of already doing that whether they want to or not, right? Selling
Hmm.
online kind of forces you to use technology and move into that space. And so I learned that the people running those types of businesses were a good fit for the type of accounting services that I was
Hmm.
offering or wanting to offer. And so it kind of happened like a natural like progression, so to speak. But at first I was like, no, this is too complicated. I don't want to have to worry about, Amazon and all those fees, and how do I split this up? And this is too much. But then I found that thankfully, there is a lot of technology around that, and a lot of apps that'll do a lot of that, a lot of the difficult stuff that we used to have to do manually. So entering sales, fees, etc. A lot of that now can just be handled with an app. And so I
Hmm.
think it was more of this fits for how I want to work, and this industry fits for the type of work that, what I'm offering. And so it kind of just happened. Uh, but often when I speak to other bookkeepers or other accountants, they're like, oh, it's too complicated. It's too much. And I'm like, it's still accounting. It's still accounting, right? So we have to get down to the basics of it's still accounting. We just have to figure out how to split up these numbers and put them in the right places. And once you kind of get that general concept, it's not as difficult, at least in my opinion, it's not as difficult as you may view it to be. Um, the other thing that scares people is sales tax, which is fair. But again, there are specialists in sales tax that I lean on. There are,
Hmm.
sales tax apps that I can lean on. And so even with that, I feel like if you and this goes back to conferences and networking, right? But
Mhm.
if you have the right people and you, I guess, ask the right questions, it's not as difficult as people have made it seem, at least not in the past. I think it's changed a lot.
Mhm. And I think that's something about your journey, which is common for most of us, is we all start out with generalists, working with a wide range of clients. And then for me, I found who I didn't want to work with,
Right.
and also who I really enjoyed working with. So what I'm hearing is that e-commerce chose you,
Kind
but
of.
once you got chosen, it kind of grew organically on its own as well. And you were able to see how it aligned with your strengths, especially on the tech side. The other part that I heard, and I really appreciate you saying, is that there were parts of it that you didn't enjoy doing, but you were able to find a tech solution that could do that heavy lifting for you.
Yeah.
And that is really so key to how, especially smaller firms need to operate today and think about things.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think also, and this popped up on like Facebook in one of the groups yesterday, right? Somebody was looking for a solution for e-commerce and several solutions were listed and they're like, "Oh, I don't know if I want to pay for the app." But what they were listing out is what they were doing manually was
Mhm.
clearly taking hours. I mean, hours and probably like years off their lives because it's stressful. And so I'm like, my brain has not thankfully kind of ever worked that way. Like I'm happy to pay for the solution rather than sit here and spend hours of my time trying to figure it out
Mhm.
or paying, a bookkeeper hours of their time to do it. I would much rather set up a strong solution and just have that be the solution. And in the long run, it's paid off because my bookkeeper can do other things, right? So he's able to work on the stuff he likes to do. He's also really just making sure that everything's running smoothly when it comes to the automation. And so that I think the e-commerce industry specifically calls for more automation and tech, but it's to me, it's absolutely worth it.
Mhm. And I think that it's partly the mindset of some people see adding tech as a cost, whereas you
Mhm.
see it as an investment. And
Yeah.
part of what I'm really hearing is that you are able to see how the tech fits into the big picture with how you want your firm to operate.
Yes.
And speaking about that, so you've been able to grow a successful firm, even though it's small, comparatively speaking. And I love the fact that you chose to really grow a firm your way that fits your lifestyle instead of the traditional expectation. So, what are some of the things that helped you to move in that direction?
I think so. It was trial and error. I think it's probably the biggest one.
Yeah.
I did not start out that way, right? I thought that I had to add employees and grow, and we had to move in a certain direction, or had to have, X amount of clients per bookkeeper, and whatever the case was. So I had originally hired two friends of mine, and I was like, "Oh, we're going to train you and get you started." That was a disaster. Um, partly because
Hmm.
they weren't like, I want to be a bookkeeper. It was like, oh, I kind of need a job, right? And so they were like, yeah, I can help you out, but that's not really how this works, right? You kind of have to really, I think bookkeeping too can be like a labor of love kind of thing. And so it's not something you love all the time or not all the aspects of it. And so I kind of moved away from that and I was like, all right, I'm going to go back to just me and I'm going to figure this out and kind of do it, my way. Um, and I think moving from that experience, going back to just having myself, and then actually moving to outsourcing to someone that is more well versed in bookkeeping already, rather than
Hmm.
trying to create a bookkeeper, that was the game changer for me. And so having someone that I can work with, I have to say that's also important. The relationship is part of it, right? Being able to speak candidly and say, okay, this is where we're at. Where are we at with this client? What do we have going on? But then also saying like, how was your weekend? And, that kind of rapport. Um, I think that was what I was looking for. So kind of personality fit, but I needed to be realistic that I needed somebody that was already in the industry to kind of make that work. Um, and so yeah, so I guess doing it my way was kind of a byproduct of trying to do it other people's ways first, like the best way I can
Hmm.
describe it.
And because you decided to keep it small, I know that you added in some tech to be able to improve the
Oh yeah, for sure.
efficiency. So, what's your tech stack?
Okay. So for e-commerce clients, we primarily use Cinder. That one's a big one. So that is the connection between Shopify, Amazon, eBay, TikTok, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They have something
Mhm.
like 30 to 40 connectors. And so we pull all of our sales in that way. On my side of things, I use something called Motion for workflow. So it's an app that connects to my calendar and really helps me to move my calendar around according to the time that I set for tasks.
Mhm.
Um, the other part about it that I like is like if I don't mark something as complete, it will move it down. So it's like, oh, we didn't get to this. Cool. We're going to reschedule it for you, and it moves it into the correct time slot. The only suggestion being that be realistic about your time. I was like, oh, I can close this account in 5 minutes. No, it takes 5 minutes to log in. So I had to be really realistic about the time
Mhm.
that it took to do things. I use HoneyBook and Anchor right now for my proposals. So HoneyBook I use as a CRM. So I enter my leads into there. I have my clients go into there first, kind of set them up, onboarding, choosing their package, everything goes into there. And then once they sign on, moving them through the process of actually, starting getting them connected with Lisio, which is also part of my tech stack, making sure that we can communicate. We use Slack internally for communication. I'm trying to say like what else is open on my desktop right now because I really Acuity. Acuity is a time. Oh
Mhm.
my gosh, Acuity for scheduling is major. So years ago somebody was like, you need Calendly or some kind of a link, to be able to
Mhm.
schedule appointments. And I was like, okay. And at the time, Acuity was free if you had Squarespace as your website. And so I signed up and oh my God, it is like probably one of the most utilized and most convenient apps
Mhm.
in my tech stack that is never, spoken about, but having a calendar link is, oh my gosh, rather than going back and forth and trying to
Yeah.
figure out what time works, how much time does this person need, it's amazing. So I like shout out to calendar links, but Acuity
Mhm.
is the one I chose. And then I use something called Claude, which is, I guess, a version of Chat GPT, and that helps
Or
me.
dot AI. I use that one
Yes.
too.
Oh, good. Okay. So I use that for a lot of like, I'll use it for my marketing stuff. I use it for my
Mhm.
Etsy shop.
Mhm.
Sometimes if I need to find a nicer way to say something, I'll throw it in
Yeah.
there and say, hey, can you make this sound nicer or more professional? Stuff like that. Or if I need to shorten something, I found that that's also very helpful. Obviously QuickBooks, I feel like that one's a no-brainer.
Mhm.
And then my clients, I guess on their side, it's like Amazon, Stripe, Etsy, eBay, etc., like all of those kinds of things. So
Yep.
they wind up being part of my stack, Shopify. They wind up being part of my tech stack. Maybe not for me internally, but I did, have to learn them and understand them. Um, I think that I covered them all.
Okay, okay.
Those are
So
the pretty
what I
majors,
have,
but yeah.
for people that are looking to move into e-commerce, and hearing from
Cinder
someone.
is a game changer, I have to say. So e-commerce specifically, Cinder is the way. And it's
Mhm.
because it's so flexible. So it does give you options of if you want to do a daily import, if you want to do actual every transaction that comes in, if you want to do Amazon differently than Shopify, if you want to add like a class to your sales, if you want to do invoices or if you want to do sales receipts, like it's just so flexible. And so
Mhm.
it's easy because I don't have to go anywhere else, right? Like I can set it up
Right.
for and just sign in and just toggle through the clients, which is
Mhm.
nice.
And I think the important thing, it's not like you need every single option out there as far as an
Yeah.
app. You just want to be selective and have the ones that are really pertinent to you. So Sender is specific to e-commerce, but then Motion connects your calendar. So that's about really time management.
Yeah.
Honeybooks and Anchor could be for anybody that has an accounting firm,
Yes.
and maybe
Anchor
some
is
team that.
great if you're, I have to say, sorry, because you just said
Yeah.
Anchor and it reminded me, but if you're sending proposals like engagement letters, and this is what I would do, right? I would set up a Word document and then I would have to drop everything in. Um, Anchor is free. So especially if you're not doing it yet, this is a great entryway into doing it.
Mhm.
You can go in, you can set up your different products or services that you offer, different packages that you offer. You can build packages, you can give the client options of taking this but not that and kind of building their own.
Mhm.
Um, and then what I do love about them is if the client chooses to pay with a credit card, you can have them pay the fee, which is also kind of cool.
Yep.
but it's a free way to move away from Word docs and PDFs and kind of like
Hmm.
being a doc and having to sign or, DocuSign and all that kind of stuff. So I feel like I should have expressed that more, but that one's pretty major because a lot of us, or a lot of people, I should say, start with like a Word doc, and it's a lot of work to then send a
Yes.
proposal. So it winds up being something that's delayed or takes a while, and it's just time that's being wasted or missed.
Hmm. So Lizio for communication, Slack for internal communication with your team, Acuity for your calendar, and then Claude AI for helping with writing or getting the words right, and then QB as your go-to for bookkeeping. So
Yeah.
yeah, and because of that, okay, you use technology which lets you save on needing extra people on your team. What do you see as some of the maybe pros and cons of having a smaller firm?
Flexibility is probably the most major pro for me. I kind of quickly realized, especially if I started. So in the very beginning, I was going to clients, right? And so I'm doing
Mhm.
sometimes 3 clients in a day. I'm taking the train all over. I'm in New York City. So I'm taking the train all over, or I'm driving out to Long Island. I'm trying to figure out how to fit everyone in. Um, Once I went remote, it was clear that I could schedule my calls if I wanted to, Tuesdays and Thursdays only, or, I'm going to take this week off. And to be fair, my clients don't even notice, right? Like I'm getting my work done, their work is being done. So I have to say flexibility is probably the most major, being able to move my schedule around and just be flexible. I would think that's probably the biggest pro um of staying small, because I'm not having to rearrange for anyone else. I'm not having to, yeah, I guess that's probably what it is. For me, I didn't want the responsibility of having to worry, probably is the biggest one. I'm high anxiety sometimes. And
Mhm.
so the responsibility and the worry that comes with a larger firm is something that was not going to be a good fit for me, just personality wise.
Mhm.
Um, and so I thankfully kind of realized that early on and decided that I was going to move in the opposite direction. Um, and then, and I guess a con, I'm like, I don't, I, I don't know. I feel like I've done fairly well as a small firm. And so I try to look at it like maybe we don't reach, bigger clients or bigger markets, but I'm okay with that. So I don't know if it's necessarily a con. It might be for some people, but for me, the way I'm running it, this makes me the happiest. And so I'm, I'm good with that.
And I think that it's important to recognize that there's no right or wrong. You have to do
Oh
what's
yeah, for sure.
best for you. And some people, they just want to have, kind of like control over everything and that flexibility so that they can be able to get away if they want to. I think
Mhm.
the problem that happens for other firm owners, especially if they are small and primarily solo, is that they never take time for themselves.
Yes.
And their self-care comes at the cost of being solo because of
So
that. And it
yeah,
sounds like that's something you've been able to kind of figure out.
yeah. So in the beginning, that was more of a problem, right? Running around and trying to fit everybody in, and how am I going to do this? And so I was working well over 40 hours, probably closer to 60 to 80, working weekends, working at night,
Hmm.
and I was literally making myself sick. And I came out of the subway one day. I was running like 10 minutes late to a client. The train ran over, blah, blah, blah. And I had like a full-on panic attack. My client didn't care that I was going to be 10 minutes late. He's like, whatever, you'll be fine. Like, whenever you get here. I
Hmm.
was full on, like, had to sit down, had to call somebody for help because I didn't even know what was happening. And I was like, wow, like, what is happening? Right. And I was having a panic attack because I was doing too much. And I think that was a big moment that I was like, something has to change. And then even more so when 2020 hit and we, kind of all went into hiding, so to speak, right? Like everyone's remote now, we're moving online, and I was already in that position. So it wasn't a big shift for me. Um, but it wound up being that I actually then had more time on my hands because we were already running this way, so we're fine.
Hmm.
Some of my clients had closed, in the time being, and so there wasn't much for us to do, but it was it was kind of like an aha moment. And I was like, I prefer this. I don't want to do 60 hours a week. I want to have weekends off. I want to have a cutoff time. I want to finish by 5. I want to make dinner.
Mhm.
You know, I was cooking like I was a chef when we were quarantined, and I was like, I like cooking. Why didn't I do this more before? And it was because I was working so much. And so after I just made a decision, I said, I'm not gonna go back to that no matter what. Like, I'm gonna figure this out. Um, and so that's why I was like, all right, we're going to stick to, I like having a bookkeeper that, you know, has some flexibility in their schedule, and just kind of working through that. Like as I
Mhm.
take on a client, I make sure that it fits for both of us and we're okay with that. But it was more of I don't want to feel that way anymore. I want to have time for myself. I want to do the things that I enjoy. Like the whole point of starting my company was so that I'm not answering to somebody else, and here I am answering to a bunch of other people, you
Right.
know, like, and so I made the decision that it had to change, and I stuck to it, thankfully.
Because you made the decision to go fully remote, did you find that your client base expanded and they were no longer geographical?
Yes. So I have clients in other countries, I have clients
Mhm.
in other states. And so yeah, it was less limiting on, I guess, where clients were. But then also, you know, a client said to me, it's like, oh, he's like, is it more efficient for you to work from your office or your home? And I was like, yeah. I said, also, you don't have to wait for me to come in on Tuesdays. If you
Mhm.
have a question on Thursdays, I can answer it now. So
Right.
like I don't have to be here with you. And he was like, cool. I didn't lose any clients when I made the switch, thankfully. And so it just helped me grow from there, because then I was able to take on more because I was working from one place, you know.
And do you have any specific strategies that you would recommend to other firm owners who are looking to remain small and they're not looking to dominate, but they don't want to end up being a slave working that 70-hour week that is so typical and leading to burnout?
I think I would think we covered most of them. Boundaries
Mhm.
is probably the biggest one. That we didn't use that word, but that's probably the biggest one. When I decided I don't want to work past 5, I don't want to work weekends, I'm gonna fit this into a real schedule. I'm gonna start at this time. So I think it was boundaries and not letting the client dictate what the schedule is gonna be was probably the biggest one. Implementing technology, which we talked about, that's major though.
Mhm.
You know, having an app that in quite literally under a minute can import, you know, 100 sales with all the detail and the sales tax and the fees and et cetera from a website, you know, that my client from, let's say, Shopify, rather than having a person have to enter all of those and possibly make mistakes. The human error aspect of it with the manual data entry, that was major. So embracing technology. Um, but I would say boundaries, embracing technology, kind of sticking to your guns is kind of the biggest one.
Mhm.
It's like I think people don't realize it, and it's really easy to say, "Oh, I'll just do it for this client. I'll just do, you know, I'll just take this on. I'll just, oh, no big deal." But it overall, when you mushroom that out into however many clients, it eats up your time, and it kind of eats away at that. I'm not going to work past this time. I'm not going to do these things. And so I write them on my whiteboard and remind myself that that's what I, you know, want to do, and
Mhm.
I stick to it. Um, and then also get help if you need it. I think especially for bookkeepers, because we try often to price, you know, as low as we can for the client. We want to help. We put ourselves in these kind of awkward positions sometimes. We're not in a position to get help, but getting someone to help me with the work and do a lot of the day to day is what freed me up to be able to do all these other things that I'm talking about, right? And so having somebody that, I mean, I'm talking minimal stuff, but sometimes just clear the bank feed for a client or
Mhm.
reconcile the bank, right? So I'm at a higher level where I'm looking at the books, I'm reviewing what's already entered, I'm making sure things are in the right place, I'm having the meeting with the clients, but then that the mundane stuff that I was getting tired of doing, you know, after 8 years, 7, 8 years, it was more I like what I'm doing now, right? And so it
Mhm.
made it less compliance based, and it made it less repetitive.
Mhm.
And so I would say getting help. So tech, getting help, and creating boundaries were the majors for staying small, but being able to kind of fit a lot of stuff in there.
And I think that the boundaries are so important, because you're the one that's the expert. They're coming to you. You ought to be dictating to them how to be able to work together instead of them
Right.
telling you how you ought to be doing your stuff.
Yes, absolutely.
And the other thing that you mentioned is that when you start making exceptions, it actually starts to expand and snowball and creeps into after 5 o'clock on Saturday and Sunday into the
Yep.
evenings and takes away. So really,
Taking your laptop on vacation.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah,
Like
we
so.
just went on a vacation where we were totally cut off from any tech.
Nice.
And that was an interesting experience, not having social media access, email access. So
Yeah.
it is something that really frees you up once you get past the initial freak out of being
Yeah,
cut off.
absolutely. Yeah, I started to realize too in a lot of our businesses, like what you do, what I do, um, the emergencies are not life and death emergencies,
Mhm,
right? I like someone said years ago, payroll is the only real like bookkeeping or accounting emergency. It has to be run by a certain time. You're literally responsible for people's
mhm,
paychecks. I get that. But aside from that, most things can wait. And so if you've, let everyone know that you're going away, you're on vacation, then it's more a matter of whether they respect your time or not.
mhm. So Kelly, you are someone who makes things happen. What is something exciting that you might have on your horizon coming up?
I will be speaking at some conferences. So I'm going to be heading to Accountex in Canada, which is pretty cool. We have the Women Who Count conference down in Hilton Head in October. I'll be going to QuickBooks Connect as well, also in October. And Appy Camp is coming up in September. So
Mhm,
I'll be at some different things. I always tell people if you see me on webinars, LinkedIn, etc., like please say hi to me in person. I'm always happy to have a conversation. Add me on LinkedIn, whatever the case is. But yeah, I'm excited because these things are the things that changed my business and my life and how things were set up. So these
mhm.
conferences are really important to me. And so I hope that I can help other people, kind of have that same experience.
Absolutely. You made some powerful points today. Enjoyed our conversation. Some of the things that you focused on is how to avoid those bottlenecks and workflow improve as your firm grows. Harnessing the power of AI to be able to, being able to really get your tech stack in place by using AI, not being afraid to. And also that you can have a very important lifestyle business as a small firm owner. You don't have to dominate. So that is something I just wanted to say. Thank you for covering those things. And Kelly, if somebody wanted to connect with you and find out about Totally Booked, what's the best way for them to do that?
Connecting with me directly is probably LinkedIn. So,
Yeah.
do you want me to put the links or do you have, I can put a link.
You are more than welcome to do it.
Okay, so I'm just gonna throw my LinkedIn in the chat and then also my website, which is just totallybooked.nyc. But you can reach out in either way.
Mhm.
My website has a direct like a direct link to my calendar if anyone has, if they wanted to book time with me or anything, but everything is there.
Thank you so much. And Kelly, I appreciate the conversation. Also, thank you to everybody that joined us today. This is Lauren Fogelman with Business Success Solution, showing firm owners how to double their income, working half the time.